As for you, Valiant, step out of line and we'll hang you and your laundry out to dry. I'm Liam, he's Rob, and this week on the Heroes podcast, we are taking a look back at a movie that was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. We are, of course, referring to Robert Zemeckis' 1998 fantasy noir Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a movie that was much more successful and certainly more influential than you probably realize, and one that, due to the time it was released, remains as visually unique and technologically impressive today as it was nearly 40 years ago. Does the movie itself hold up, though, or does it ultimately fall into that odd middle ground stuck between charming kids' movie and nostalgia-laden noir? Now, first thing, I didn't realize this film was such a big hit. Like, this film was a monster. Like, they were moaning about the budget going into it. Like, they originally wanted it to be 50, then it was down to 30. It went over, but it fell somewhere in between. Of course, it helped that they had Spielberg and Amblin Productions and stuff online. But in 1988, this did like 350 million. It won 3 Oscars and was massively influential.
Jesus. I mean, it's always been a part of my zeitgeist. Like, I've always known about it. And I've seen it many times. But to just, to put it up there as this, like, said, well, this is a massive hit. I wouldn't have put those two together, but I mean, you can see it. You can see why. The storytelling's great. The animation holds up, especially for 1988. I reckon it'd be fantastic. I mean, Jessica Rabbit is fucking fantastic. There's a couple of things that
super iconic.
A couple of things that I honestly didn't put together until today, and we'll mention them as we go through. But the first one being fucking Kathleen Turner was the voice of Jessica Rabbit. That blew me away.
Oh, did you not know that?
No, I did not. I've never looked into who voiced Jessica Rabbit. See?
Oh, well, that's the thing. That was the point of this film. Like, she's not even credited. But I think the whole point was like she almost didn't need to be, because I think she might have the most sultry voice in cinema history. She just has like that smoky, sexy voice, which is absolutely perfect for this movie. The idea of this kind of sex icon from the 40s. You know, you don't see it on screen, but you get the impression she probably smokes 40 a day, if tunes do indeed smoke. But yeah, she's such an unbelievably iconic character. I'm watching the whole thing. I'm just like, is it okay to find Jessica Rabbit sexy? I was like, I think it is, right? I mean, I think I was too young when I watched it for it to kind of like connect to me on that level. I can't remember like ever having a crush on Jessica Rabbit when I was younger. But you watch it now and you're like, well, she's supposed to be attractive, obviously.
Yeah, she's like a sexual icon. Absolutely.
Oh, 100%.
And to the fact that I say guarantee, like I don't know, say it in comments. There are pornos about Jessica Rabbit.
Oh, dude, of course. Yeah, of course.
Like cosplay Jessica Rabbit, like in Comic-Con and things like that. So,
no, that's one of those classic things. I don't have to like search Pornhub to know that there's fucking Jessica Rabbit porn. There's going to be Jessica Rabbit porn, dude.
I search Pornhub. There's Jessica Rabbit
porn.
Oh,
fair enough. Well, so,
I mean, it was for investigative purposes only. I promise you that.
Of course. That's the thing. You know, you go that extra mile where required to make sure we're fully covered. All bases are covered. I mentioned at the intro, and obviously you kind of alluded to the idea of just how good this movie looks and the fact that it still looks good today. And I was trying to figure out why it looks so incredibly good. And I think it's for the same reason that so many of the movies we've gone back and rewatched, a lot of the best looking ones, the ones that have aged the best, are actually from the late 80s. And it's because it's almost like in some respect, an evolutionary dead end. So it was before CG came in, and it was like physical effects were at the peak of their power before, you know, don't get me wrong, there are still amazing movies made today with primarily physical effects. But obviously, you know, more and more movies lean on CG now. But back in the late 80s, it was still, you know, to say prevalent would be an understatement. It was, you know, the primary way of, you know, making movies in the late 80s. So that's why movies like Predator, Aliens, all these things, you know, RoboCop, they still look fantastic today. And I think it's the same with this in terms of the animation style, because, you know, I know it's 1988, but we're not a million miles away from Toy Story. And obviously, you know, this movie actually led to like Disney's renaissance in the late 80s. So, you know, without this, do you have Aladdin? Do you have The Little Mermaid, et cetera, et cetera? You know, who knows? But because the emphasis is on old-fashioned hand-drawn animation for the most part, it still looks phenomenal. And the way I remembered this film I always remembered that the introduction was like just pure animation. Like it was just kind of like set out like a cartoon. And
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like the start of like Team America. Remember they kind of do a puppet show at the start and then it
Puppet show
zooms out.
and the puppets are controlling the puppet show. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be one of those, oh, look, it's an old-fashioned cartoon, and then it's going to zoom out and you realize they're in the real world. And I'm watching it now. I'm like, dude, that opening animation is unfucking believable. I looked it up.
So
it took 9 months to do that opening 5 minutes.
It's so fantastic as well. And the transition then
to
go from the cartoon to the real world and everything. Mm-hmm. It looks, and it's fantastic. And as you say, right, maybe late 80s is where the reason why they look so good. But I'd say as well, this is the peak. There was a state of these, a spate, sorry, of these films. Like, and I'd still say, and I'll say a bunch of the names now because I've got them written down, but I still say this looks better than Monkey Bone, Cool World, fucking Space Jam. Space Jam just feels too polished. Like it doesn't work. This for some reason,
Space Jam's it's decent, but the thing is, the reason this probably looks better than and you've got Osmosis Jones. I fucking love
Osmosis Jones. Yeah, but Osmosis Jones
that was later.
Yeah, but it's not. There's no. It goes inside the body. It's become separate, animation. Yeah, it's not like. It's not a mix of live action and animation. Yeah,
absolutely right. I think I just want to say Osmosis Jones because it's a movie I hadn't thought about for a long time. But I think the reason is literally because, in so many respects, this is like a complete labor of love. It's Robert Zemeckis who wanted to make this previous. I didn't realize that this film was an adaptation of a novel. Like there was a 1981. It was Gary K. Wolfe. And it was called
Who Censored Roger. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and he wanted to make this back then, but he was coming off a couple of flops, and it kind of got pushed down the road a little bit. At one point, Terry Gilliam was going to make it, and Terry Gilliam turned it down. He's one of the many people attached to this film, and the universal response to all of them is like, "Oh, I totally regret turning this down." So that you read it so many times of the stars who turned it down, the directors who turned it down, the writers, the anime, everyone who turned it down. They watch that film afterwards, and they're like, fuck. Like Terry Gilliam admitted, he said, the reason I didn't do it is because the technical aspects, I was just too lazy. And now I look back, I'm like, man, what a massive opportunity. But obviously, they come to Zemeckis, hot off Back to the Future. You get Spielberg involved with his Amblin production. And we mentioned at the end of last week's episode, this might be one of only 2 examples where you think, how did they manage to get all of those IPs on screen together? And the other example we used was Ready Player One. And what is the reason for that? Spielberg. And what is the reason they were able to get everything for this film? Spielberg again. Like, if Spielberg comes a knocking, everyone just says yes. Except for, and sorry to butt in, apparently Popeye. Couldn't get Popeye.
So 2 things. The first thing being, you said about people turning it down. Bill Murray was a big one. They couldn't get hold of him for Valiant. Couldn't reach, so they just went to Dustin.
It's because he has a weird way of, he doesn't have an agent.
So they went to Bob Hoskins, and he said when he found out then that they wanted him for it, he screamed in the street apparently, which is interesting. And the other thing you said about like all these characters put together, Warner Brothers went nuts, didn't they? Because Disney approached Warner Brothers, said, "Could we have some of your characters?" And they said, "Yeah, you can have some other characters as long as they're not made the folly." So they need to have the same airtime, and so that's why you see a lot of them together. You see Donald and Daffy, you see Porky and Tinkerbell at the end, because they're all together.
Mickey and Bugs Bunny kind of are both parachuting exactly the same amount of screen time.
But then go to 93 or 96, whenever Space Jam came out. And Warner Brothers approached Disney and said, "Oh no, can you return the favor? Can we have some of your Disney characters?" They went, "Fuck no."
That's the thing now, isn't it? It's like that's one of the reasons. I mean, beyond the whole Spielberg thing, maybe if Spielberg comes to knock in, the reason this will never happen again is because these big companies, especially Disney, they're far too protective of their IPs now. Like they were not in a position of power in like 1987 going into 1988. Yeah. This was before they had their second golden era with the movies I'd already mentioned previously. So, that was the time to catch them. If you went to them now and said, "Oh, we want to use Mickey and we want to use Pixar characters," it's just not happening. One of the reasons they say that there hasn't been a sequel to this, because supposedly there's a really good script ready to go. There's been different periods when, the kind of interested parties have been available. But one of the big issues is Jessica Rabbit again. Yeah. Because Disney are like, they will not have a character like that in one of their movies now, like especially something aimed at kids. And although that is one of the interesting things with this film, like I love this film, who is it for? is this a kids movie, or is this just a nostalgia laden kind of, love letter to golden era animation and golden era Hollywood? Because I was trying to think about what this film meant to the makers in the 80s. Because there were quite a few films like this. Remember, there was Dragnet as well, which was like a throwback to like 40s golden era cinema and stuff. And I was like, well, that's to the 80s. So if you were watching or making this in the 80s, that stuff from the 40s to then is like us having fucking Stranger Things. It's us having nostalgia for the 80s. It's the same time difference, which makes me feel old and depressed. But you get what I mean. Like, they had that brief period with this kind of obsession with golden era Hollywood and golden era animation. A lot of that came from the success of this film, of course.
You're always going to have that obsession with things in the past. That's the whole the whole point. You're always going to bring up things, and because with stuff like that, you can take something from the past, but you can give it its own unique spin. For example, and you said who's it for, and I don't really know who it's for, except for maybe the filmmakers themselves. They're like,
I think you're right.
We wanted to do this, so we did it, to the point where Robert Zemeckis, it was, what do they call it when they screening? They screened it for a bunch of 19-year-olds, and they all walked out.
Yeah.
All of them walked out. And Zemeckis turned around and said, well, I ain't changing a thing. And it turns out to be the best decision he made, because...
And I would say it was almost exactly not for them. I was talking to someone just yesterday about how, and it's probably the same is true of you. I've watched the films and stuff like that, but Harry Potter came out at the perfect time for someone my age to completely not give a fuck. Like, Harry Potter coming out, like the movies and stuff, and hitting big when I was 19, there was nothing lamer than someone saying, oh, you're gonna watch this movie about kids going to high school? And I'm like, I'm in college now. I'm like, fuck those bitches. Like, you have it just seems like the lamest thing in the world. So I had no interest in it. And this film, I think it either works for young kids, or it works for actual adults. I think if you're between 16 and like 19, it's probably not going to be for you.
I don't know if it works for young kids now, because I showed my kid and he got bored and walked out of the room. It just wasn't for him. So I think young kids back then, it's more nostalgia pops now. Again, with the nostalgia, we watch it now and we enjoy it, but you've got to catch the kids at the right time.
Attention spans as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's all second screen shit now, and everything that's made is second screen.
Well, put this way, right? When we were kids, if somebody rented Roger Rabbit, it was either if I'm not going outside, like if it's a rainy day and I've got Roger Rabbit on VHS, it's literally either, I'm going to watch this, or I'm going to turn on Channel 4 and hope something's on. No, I'm fucking watching that movie. I get it now. If there's even the slightest lull, especially for younger kids, they're going to be like, fuck this, I've got a million other things I want to do.
Right, go back a little bit, right? Because we mentioned, or you mentioned, and then talked for hours about the book, Who Censored Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
What I have you read the book? Have you read the plot or anything?
I haven't.
I've never read the book.
I literally I found out about it yesterday when I was watching the movie.
So I haven't read the book, but I did read the plot.
Okay.
And not going into it, but the synopsis is, and this is, again, who is it for? Because this is a massive change. Roger Rabbit is killed. Ooh. Roger Rabbit is dead at the beginning of the book. And Eddie Valiant,
so that's the mystery.
Yeah. No, well, yeah, it's sort of like who censored him. So Valiant teams up with a doppelganger of Roger Rabbit. It's basically like a print that doesn't last long, so it'll last a couple of days. So it's trying to figure out. And when I was reading, I think, I got to read this book. It sounds great. He's a hard-boiled private eye, and Roger is. So basically, what it is, Roger Rabbit was second fiddle to the baby Herman. He was then promised his own cartoon series, but then was murdered instead. So then Jessica Rabbit is his widow and things like that. So it sounds great. It sounds like like neo-noir style and everything. So it sounds really good.
Well, and the thing is, I understand why they didn't go with that, because they probably did want to appeal to a wider audience, and a wider audience does include kids, of course. But one of my few issues with this film is that the plot is a little bit obtuse at times. There was a moment like 3/4 of the way through, I'm just like, wait, what exactly is going on? And even by the end, when Judge Doom, you're just like, wait, so he's willing to commit genocide and, kind of kill all these people, the owners of the different film companies and stuff, just so we can build a bike or a freeway? And this of obsession with the freeway, I was just like, there has to be something else, because I'm like, he's willing to kill all the Toons, so surely he must have a grudge with Toontown or something. And the more it goes on, you're just like, no, he doesn't. He just wants to build a freeway.
I love that, though, because a freeway, motorway, means fuck all to us. It's something that we've always had. But to them, set in the 20s or 30s, yeah, what the fuck? Why would anyone ride your magical freeway when they can get on the car for a nickel? And
But
it's just like, it's so good. Do you know?
It's a weirdly convoluted plot all the same. It doesn't really matter to your enjoyment of the film, but I just thought it was quite bizarre at times.
Talking about things that I missed as well,
Mhm.
as after rewatching this film, I've never noticed before. I've always enjoyed. I keep calling him fucking Dustin Hoffman, fucking poor Bob Hoskins. I've always enjoyed Bob Hoskins' performance at the end, where he makes
Mhm.
the weasels laugh and
The
he's having a
vaudeville
song and
act.
dance. Yeah, and I was thinking, well, for this character,
Mhm.
as it goes through, this seemed very odd to me. Like it's always felt odd that he goes into that at the end, as you said, the vaudeville act, when he's quite
Yeah.
good at it. And then I finally paid attention when you're in the Valiant and Valiant's office
Mhm.
and is going on to the pictures. And I finally paid attention to these pictures and realized, no, he was a clown. Him and his
Yeah, yeah.
brother were actual clowns
Mhm.
before they became detectives. They were cop. I've never seen the picture of them in their police academy thing where they're the only two with red
Yeah.
noses on laughing. Never paid attention to that
Or
before.
me. First time I
And the
caught it
oth-
as well.
and the other thing as well was, and this is a big plot, so I must not have seen this for a while because I'm sure I would have picked this up in my head, is he keeps acting surprised
Mhm.
everything Toons do. Like he's super surprised at what's happening around him with the
Yeah, got
Toons.
you.
But he was predominantly with his brother solving Toon cases.
Yeah,
He's
it's
been to
strange,
Toon
right?
Towns a lot. He's got Toon guns. He knows that they don't obey the laws of physics or
Mhm,
anything
mhm,
like that.
mhm.
So why is he all right? Once maybe it's been a while. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't remember you. But why is he always shocked at everything that happens? That felt a bit
It's
like
no, I know what you mean. No, it is like a kind of, I guess you would call it kind of narrative dissonance because I understand why they have it because he's the stand-in for basically us. Like, oh my
yeah,
God, look at, if he asks all passe about what the tune's doing, then it seems less amazing. So I understand why they did it. But yeah, as soon as you start paying attention to the narrative, and it is almost like they kind of bury the lead because I'm the same as you. I never realized before that he used to be a clown. And I'm not even sure if I even totally picked up that he and his brother used to work in Toontown and that he's just become this kind of jaded
yeah.
cop because his brother was killed and had the piano dropped on him. But yeah, if you think about it, it doesn't really match up. But and I think it doesn't really matter because the emphasis, and we talked about it earlier, the whole idea about, who is this for, is when I was rewatching it now, I was like, well, I think it's predominantly for adults because I think before it's an animated movie, it's a noir first and foremost. And
Yeah.
secondly, you could argue it's an odd couple comedy before it's like, I don't know, like your traditional cartoon movie. And I guess my other concern going into it was like, oh, I haven't seen this for a long time. Is Roger Rabbit going to be annoying? Because, he's got like the speech impediment, he's super loud.
Yeah.
It's like, is this going to be a lot? And then you watch it and they're actually pretty reserved with the amount of screen time he has. Like, make no mistake, this isn't a Roger Rabbit movie. This is a Bob Hoskins movie, 100%.
Yeah.
He's in the movie like the whole time. Roger Rabbit comes in and out of the movie almost like comic relief as the character's intended. I think he's probably in what, like 20-30% of the movie. So he's never in on screen long enough for him to actually be annoying. He just comes in, he's a whirlwind of sound, screen, aesthetics. Maybe it helps the fact that every sequence is so technically impressive. You're almost like just marveling at what they were able to achieve in 1988. But before he can get too annoying, he's off screen again and you're just back with Bob Hoskins doing his noir thing again, which I think is not to the detriment of the film at all. I think the film benefits from it massively, especially in the long run in terms of appreciating it. Like if you're an adult, for instance, going back and
Yeah.
rewatching it.
Two things I want to bring up whilst I'm thinking of them. The first one being, I kind of got a bit sick of the long suffering Dame act from his missus.
Dolores.
Dolores, yeah. Like I don't know why. It's just all right, 1920s, you've got the Dame act, that's great. But after a while, it just became a bit too much for me. Like I liked her in this film. I thought she was great. But
it's weird. I had an issue with her, but it was the complete opposite of you because I'm looking at it and I'm like, why is Dolores played by Joanna Cassidy,
yeah.
sorry. It's like really attractive. They kind of play her down slightly so she's not like Jessica Rabbit, but she's clearly really attractive. And she's like this single woman in a bar in the 40s. And you're just like, she couldn't get a man or she's waiting. I know the idea is that Bob Hoskins used to be a much better man and that's who she's waiting for. But there's almost a hint of what's her name from Jennifer Connelly in Top Gun Maverick. It's not quite as extreme as that, but like she owns her own bar. She's like 50 years old, but she's like the hottest 50-year-old woman maybe the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
She owns like a Porsche 911. She's got her own yacht, and she can't find a man. It's like, get to fuck. Like Dolores is like the low key 40s version of that. I'm just like, come on, Dolores, you can do better than this. But yeah, she like, I know they're playing to the tropes of the genre and of the time, but she's almost the exact same character as, say, I forgot the name of her, but the one from Dick Tracy. Like, the love interest.
Yes.
Got the same demeanor. Yeah. She looks the same. I get it a bit more. She's kind of, she's obsessed with Warren Beatty instead of Bob Hoskins. You kind of get it. But she's basically playing the exact same character, isn't she?
Dolores was Zora in Blade Runner as well.
Yeah.
That surprised me. The other thing I wanted to mention, actually, I got another two things to mention. The other thing I wanted to mention, did you recognize Raoul, the director of the Baby Herman comic at the beginning?
No. Oh, yes, I did.
It's Joel Silver.
Yeah.
That was like the guy that along with Jerry Bruckheimer brought action into the 90s. Yeah, fucking Joel Silver.
Well, they were over everything around this time, and yeah. The other thing, the one thing I really noticed with this film, and I didn't even have to check to see if this film was scored by Alan Silvestri, because I'm watching it, I'm like, my God, this film, other than like nods to the 40s and stuff like that, this sounds like an almost perfect combination of Back to the Future and Predator. There's like little bits of music and throughout this film where I'm like, oh, that's going to go into Back to the Future, or that's going to go into Predator. And all I'm just saying is, all I know for sure is this is Alan Silvestri 100%. And it's not the only, well, I don't know for sure, and this might be in fact, so you can tell me otherwise. I think there's another nod to Back to the Future. When he goes in the tunnel to Toontown, is that the same tunnel?
I don't know if it's the same tunnel.
It looks like the tunnel from Back to the Future 2, where he has the race with
Biff. Biff, and the manure truck.
I'm not sure. I really should have checked this out, but I was looking at it, I was just like, that looks like the exact same tunnel. But I might be wrong, so maybe I just got too excited about
it. I like that, right? You're looking at the tunnel, you're looking at all this, and the only thing I could concentrate on was, my God, that was a big double bourbon. Like, as a bourbon fan,
that was
as a bourbon fan, when he says, Dolores, pull me a bourbon and make it a double, like, fucking hell,
that's for a nickel double. And I tell you what, Roger Rabbit reacts to alcohol the same way my wife does. If I gave my wife a double bourbon, I mean, that's a quadruple bourbon at least, and she downed that, I think she would go through the roof as well. I have absolutely no doubt. But I wanted to make, because we mentioned the fact that this led to almost a resurgence in like live action combined with animation, and none of them were all that successful. It's similar to the story with like Batman from 1989, where they took the wrong lessons and they went out and made the Phantom and the Shadow and all that jazz. But we mentioned the fact that there was a renewed interest in golden age of animation. And you think, oh, well, Disney went on and did like all those movies in the late 80s, early 90s. But I never really connected the dots growing up, thinking about all the Saturday morning cartoons which were inspired by this. Like, you think Goof Troop, Quack Pack, DuckTales, Tiny Toon Adventures, Animaniacs. There was even like a live Looney Tunes movie. Even, I'm not sure if you remember, Betty Boop had like a period in the early 90s when she was like everywhere aesthetically. And I think it all fundamentally stems from the success of this movie, where they're going back to the catalog. We're going to go back to, Daffy, Donald and all that stuff. We're going to kind of have a twist on them for modern audiences. And as I said, that led to Tiny Toon. I remember Tiny Toon Adventures and the Animaniacs were massive when I was a kid. Massive. Yeah, and I think they are directly linked to the success of this movie. I really do.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future Part 2, Bumblebee, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, Barton Fink, The Page Master, Nancy Drew, Mother's Boys, The Affair, and then many, many TV shows, all filmed Mount Hollywood Doctor Tunnel, Los Angeles, California, USA.
There you go. Yeah. It's just one of those iconic looking tunnels. But I immediately, when I saw it, and of course, it's the combination of the aesthetic and the music, where I'm just like, oh, this could just go straight into Back to the Future 2. It's ridiculous. But yeah, like I said, such a great looking movie. And you mentioned the most impressive shot of the movie, without question, is that transition at the start. It's unfucking believable. And the way that this immediately, the world immediately feels seamless and believable, like fleshed out, colored out within 10 minutes of it opening. It comes back to that whole idea that this was a kind of a passion project, a love letter to the time, because it's not just the animation, which looks great, it's the set design. Whether it be out on the street or in the rooms, everything has that kind of Art Deco, cigarettes, whiskey everywhere. And you're just like, you don't have to be told anything. You're like, I know exactly where we are. I know exactly what's going on. I know what genre you're going for. And it just like everything it aims to do, other than maybe, as I said, the plot, which is a little bit convoluted, it fundamentally knocks it out of the park. Yeah. And there's the reason that this movie has lived on for so many years, I think.
I said seamless as well at the beginning, and it is seamless. And that goes to pretty much everything as well, with a few exceptions, in regards to the interaction between the animated characters and the real life characters. Yeah. When they're hitting each other, when they're touching each other, things like that. I think it all looks fantastic. Yep. The Baby Herman and his missus, his kind, whoever,
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
Because that is like, even he says it. I got a 50-year-old libido and a 3-year-old pecker. But
that was one of the moments where you're just like, this definitely isn't for kids. This definitely isn't for kids.
One of the only things that I could think of at the top of my head that really like made me think, oh yeah, it's animation, obviously, is the barroom brawl when he's fighting the weasels the first time. Looked a bit odd, but when he catches Roger Rabbit after Roger comes back down, he's about to go into the dip. Roger has to pause, and he has to like lean, and he kind of misses him in the animation, and it pulls him like so. It looks. And of course,
two moments.
Yeah, because it's a cartoon character, so he's not really physically interacting with him. So of course, it's not going to look. But the rest of it, like Dumbo at the screen where they feed Dumbo peanuts, that looks great. The pelican on the bike who falls over when Valiant comes out, and the hippo just walks past him and says, "Excuse me," and she sends that guy into the air. There's a pelican on a bike, and he falls over and he crashes. And the reason why that pelican crashes, fantastic. The filmmakers couldn't keep the bike straight. So the animators just said, no, let it fall. It's fine. We'll animate the pelican falling. So they filmed the bike falling, going and falling, and then they animated the pelican on top of it. It looks great.
Well, that's the thing. So many of these brilliant ideas come from like the limitations of the technology. They're kind of working around the limitations and end up with something magical that was never planned. But I mean, they were like you said, I mean, the moment that actually stuck out for me, I think nearly everything with the tunes in the real world looks fantastic, almost universal. You can pick nits, but almost universally fantastic. The one bit that doesn't look quite as good is when Bob Hoskin goes into the Toon World at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that starts to become a bit, because they don't have the technology to do full on like green screen or anything like that. That's when it becomes a bit.
It's not terrible. It doesn't take you out of the movie, but it doesn't look quite as good as the other bits. But some of them, I'm convinced, like, in terms of like physical comedy, which is really hard to pull off, and this film does fantastically throughout, I think the peak is when Roger Rabbit is handcuffed to Bob Hoskins' character, Eddie Valiant. Yeah. And it almost feels like a flex. What it reminded me of, I'm not sure if you've seen Ryan Coogler's Sinners yet. It's in the cinema, obviously. Everyone, listens to this.
I haven't seen it yet. I really want to.
I mean, there is an opening shot where, this isn't a spoiler, where it's just such a flex, where he's basically handing cigarettes back and forth between Michael B. Jordan and Michael B. Jordan. And it's almost like, okay, this is one guy, but look what we can do. And it's like low-key exceptional. And then for the rest of the movie, honestly, by the end of the movie, I was just like, I think there might be two Michael B. Jordans.
It's not one guy.
Seamless.
It's Michael B. Jordan. It's Michael B. Jordan and Michael C. Jordan.
Oh, Michael C. Jordan. Of course. I totally forgot about that.
Terrible joke.
That was terrible.
Terrible
he is a dad. Joke. He is a dad. You've got to allow him at least one per episode. It's like me mentioning James Cameron. I'll mention James Cameron or Tom Cruise. You can get a dad joke, and it's absolutely fun.
Do you know what?
I was just going to say, like, the scenes where they're handcuffed together in particular, I don't know how long it must have done to do that all practically on set, to like reshoot things, overlay things. But the scene with the weasels, like you said, there's the scene in the bar where you have like a couple of moments. I think actually, from a technical perspective, the most impressive scene is in Eddie Valiant's, I don't want to say his apartment because it's his office, isn't it? And he's got Roger Rabbit in the sink.
In the sink,
And it's all kicking off and stuff. And I was just like, this is just next level stuff. But I'm sorry, it's a butt in there.
Oh, no, that's fine. You finishing your thought. That's absolutely great. I just wanted to say, you said last week, you said something about your wife, that she, well, what the fuck? I'm forgetting names all over the shop now. I still can't remember his name. Christopher Lloyd as Judge Doom. When
Yes.
he became when he
Yeah.
became
The
animated Doom,
tune and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, scared her. Which understandable with daggers for eyes, everything
100%.
like that. That voice. Would she have been more scared if it was originally Tim Curry?
Well, that's the if ever there was a screen test I want to see, if Tim Curry was deemed too scary as
Yeah,
Judge Doom, you're just like, how fucked up his performance must have been
yeah,
for a kids movie.
yeah.
I
That's
mean,
right.
so like I mean, we
Because
mentioned some of
he
the other
didn't even
ones.
freak
Like,
out Zemeckis, did he? He freaked out like all of them who watched that. They were like, "No, no, mate, you're a brilliant actor, but that's too scary." And I wonder,
don't
is
give
it the
it.
facial expressions or?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's the voice. Like he's got it in him. Like you hear all these other ones. Like it was in, this is Eddie Valent now was initially offered to Harrison Ford, Chevy
Yeah,
Chase. You mentioned Bill Murray. Eddie Murphy turned it down. But the names that were because it basically just went to everyone in Hollywood. Supposedly the other names considered were Stallone, Robin Williams, Robert Redford, and Jack Nicholson. Out of those, I actually think Robin Williams would have been great in this movie. But that's besides the
yeah,
point. But the one that stands out is absolutely Tim Curry as Judge Doom. When you hear that, you're just like, oh, I would love to see how fucked up his performance was because Christopher Lloyd is up there in terms. I was trying to think of the scariest villains in kids' movies, and I think in many respects, they're the most impactful. So unless you're basically people like you and I, like we're psychos, we were watching like Aliens and Predator and movies we shouldn't have been watching when we were like 8 years old. But for
no,
most people, they grow up with kids' movies, and those, even though they might not be scary to you as an adult, if they scare the shit out of you when you're 6, they're the ones that stay with you forever. And I was like, he's got to be right up there. And I was looking for like other scary villains in kids' movies, and the ones I came up with are. And I keep hearing this. I obviously watched it as an adult, but even watching it as an adult, I was like, man, this is going to fuck up some kids. The other mother from Coraline with like the buttons
yeah.
for
The
eyes,
buttons for eyes, yeah,
totally fucked. The
yeah.
Wheelers,
Freaks out Dave.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
If any of these were going to scare you as an adult, I think it'd be the other mother from Coraline.
yeah,
The Wheelers from Return to Oz. Um,
yeah,
this is a throwback. Terak from Ewoks Battle of Endor. He was fucked up. Wolf from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I'm not sure if you've seen that film, but
yeah.
to bring it back to Sinners again, supposedly that character directly inspired Ryan Coogler's vampire design in
Okay.
Sinners. And when you
Oh,
watch
nice.
Sinners and you know that, you're like, oh yeah, I can totally see it.
Yeah,
And one for us Brits, the witches from Roald Dahl's The Witches, when they take
yeah.
off their masks and stuff
Angelica
when you're
Houston when
younger.
she removes, yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, it's so fucking gross. So
You
they're
miss
up
it.
there, but
You're missing one.
go for it.
I'm not a huge fan of the film, but I always didn't like. It was always on a Christmas or something as a kid. The child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Oh
I
yeah, no, you're
fucking
absolutely
hated
right.
that thing. Like Jesus
So fucking
Christ.
creepy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's what like I remember bizarrely. I used to be really scared of the opening sequence of the Hulk TV show. I have like these really early memories of it being
Oh
on
yeah,
TV
yeah,
when I was like 5 years old, and I could watch the episode, but I couldn't watch the intro when he turned into the Hulk. And it's bizarre. Maybe it was like a backlash. I ended up like the Hulk became like my favorite comic book growing up, but I had like this brief period when I was just like scared of the intro of the Hulk. That's I don't know what the hell's going on there, but there are some other like weird things that go on in this film. Like, if you stop and think about it, it's like, how do we feel about sentient shoes being locked up in boxes? I was like, well, that's pretty messed up. But then I was like, oh, it could be worse. You could be burnt alive in
yeah.
the dip.
Dipped. Yeah.
That scene, like, I can imagine for all the talk of like his eyeballs coming out and his voice going high pitch, I bet you for a lot of kids, it's when he burns that fucking shoe alive that they were just like, oh, this guy's fucked. Which is amazing that by the end of the film, everyone's just like, oh, Judge Doom is a bad guy? I was like, what, the guy dressed in all black, the guy with those fucking evil looking weasels all the time? It's like, yeah, that guy's pretty evil, unsurprisingly.
It is hinted at as well throughout that he's a toon. I mean, he wears the
Yeah,
massive gloves when he
yeah.
puts them in the dip. When
You can
the
see
dip
his face as well. The side of his face doesn't
yeah,
look quite right.
when the dip is spilt,
Hmm.
he is one of the first people to back away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, but it's yeah. I was thinking of what tune I wouldn't mind dipping in. Like if I was watching this film
Hmm.
and it was all the tunes, which just from this film,
Oh, yes,
and
good
I don't know
shout.
why, and it's not fair, right? But it's
Hmm.
just because I didn't like it at all. I dipped the singing sword, the Harry Connick Jr. singing sword thing. That would get dipped.
I think people would understand if you went for that. I was really thinking, like, what would you choose? I think you've made the right choice there. I thought I was going to worry then and say you're going to pick like Roger or something like that. He's a bit much, but I don't want to put him in the dip. The dip itself is an evil concept.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, this is the only thing that can kill Toons. You're like, God damn, man.
I've got it in facts, but that's basically because what he says, I haven't got it off the top of my head, but the chemicals that they say, that is the chemical they use to erase.
That's why they go out their way to describe what's in it, like turpentine and something else, isn't it?
Because that's what you erase the cartoons from on the film.
That's quite
in real life. So yeah.
And I bet you, I would have missed nearly all of them.
Sorry.
I'm sure, like, there's so many Easter eggs in this movie. Like, I love like one of the like low key ones when it's kind of scanning across his office, and there's a newspaper, and it just says like the headline is "Goofy cleared of spy charges."
Spy charges,
like, yeah. I don't know why that's awesome.
Sorry, I've got it by here. So it's the dip that kills the Toons is made of turpentine, acetone, benzene, and paint thinners used to remove images from cells.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. So, see, they thought of everything with this movie, and again, like that whole idea, is like coming back to that idea of like it being a love letter. You can imagine how excited they were, Alan Silvestri, the writers, Spielberg, when they're just like, I get the impression of all the characters they were able to get up on screen together. The ones they were most excited about was Daffy and Donald Duck, because I think that might be one of the best scenes in the movie. When they're having the face-off on the pianos, that was a big deal from them. They're just like, oh, we're going to knock this one out of the park. And it was the same, when they had like, I'm trying to think of like the key sequences, is like the introduction of Jessica Rabbit, which was absolutely iconic, but it also like raises the question of interspecies relations, because everyone in that room, the whole like we joked earlier about the idea, it's like, oh, do you find Jessica Rabbit hot? The humans in this movie absolutely find her hot.
I mean, especially like Marvin Acme.
Oh, Acme, the dirty old bastard. He plays the whole nice guy, that, playing patacake and stuff like that. But he's clearly down for whatever with Jessica. But you see the guys on the side, I'm just like, there's got to be a bit of nonsense going on, right? I mean, the problem is if you can fuck something, there's going to be a guy who's going to fuck it somewhere, kind of thing. And if it happens to look like Jessica Rabbit, then Jesus Christ, you're not going to have to go very far down the list.
If you can fuck something, there's going to be, I like that. If you can fuck something, there's going to be somebody that's fucked it.
That's just the world we live in, dude. That is the world we live in, sadly.
I never like watching this as well. And I never put two and two together when I'm watching the film previously. Mm-hmm. And it's not like it's a massive stretch. But Marvin Acme, the owner of Toontown, of course, like the Acme products that fucking Wile E. Coyote always uses, Yeah, it's just I never put those together, but I just
I did. And the thing is, some things even now go over my head. Like again, this idea that they're playing to a very specific gallery at times. It's like the sequence in the bar, which we mentioned has a few issues, but for the most part, is a fantastic sequence. And they refer to the old shaven haircut trick. And I was like, what the fuck is the old shaven haircut trick? And when Roger Rabbit bursts out of the wall and says 2 bits, that's supposedly what they would shout at the end of a performance for comedic effect. So that's like the associated response, I suppose. But I was like, how many people, and obviously I include myself in this, have no idea what the old shaven haircut trick is? I mean, everyone knows but I didn't know it was anything to do with some kind of like, stage act or anything like that.
The best animation, the best makeup job in this entire film was when they turned Bob Hoskins into a werewolf.
Into a werewolf? Oh, when he took his top off.
Off. Jesus Christ, that's a hairy man.
He's in the same kind of league as, I mean, we mentioned him earlier, Robin Williams. He's in that kind of rarefied air of like, holy shit, dude, you're one hairy motherfucker. But I love the fact that he is the quintessential non-traditional leading man. Like, we mentioned all those other guys, who were up for the role. And it's like, Harrison Ford and all these, even Jack Nicholson is like, non-traditionally handsome, but still handsome in his own way for sure. And then you have Bob Hoskins. It's like, it made sense when he was leading, say, I don't know, Super Mario Brothers. He looks like Super Mario Brothers. But supposedly the reason he got the part was because Spielberg said he looks like he's from the 40s. And you're like, yeah, he does. And it also happens that he's absolutely fucking brilliant. Like, have you ever seen a bad Bob Hoskins performance? I don't think they exist.
I was just looking at his list now. 127. I mean, bless him. His last film was Snow White and the Huntsman.
Yeah, but that's not his fault. Nobody's watching that film and going, that was terrible because of Bob Hoskins.
So hang on, I got a question for you because you brought it up last week, or I brought it up last week and you slated on it. A bad Bob Hoskins' performance. He was Rona Mitra's boss in Doomsday.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I totally forgot about that. See when I think of it, it's bizarre. For all like he's an Oscar winner, and I just think of him as Hook. I'm just like he's so good in Hook.
Yeah, but he was also Odin in Son of the Mask.
Oh, that film was rough. Yeah. He's been. I didn't say he's not been in bad movies.
he does the best performance in bad movies.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the ones the aforementioned Super Mario Brothers movie, we covered that on this podcast, and we both agreed he's really, even in a movie where he said he was phoning it in. I think everyone after a while was phoning it in that movie. He's still really good as Mario. It's just the film around him is complete ass. Complete ass. It's not.
I've always liked Bob Hoskins. I've always thought he was a great actor. He did that film where it was randomly set in Scotland, but it had Morgan Freeman in it and Jet Li, where Jet Li played a dog, but then Bob Hoskins took his collar off and Jet Li became a warrior. What was that?
Oh, what the fuck?
Unleashed. Have you never seen that?
Oh my God. I thought this was like the movie equivalent of Skittlebrow. I was like, sir, I think you may have dreamt this movie.
Have you not seen Unleashed?
I have not seen it. Wait, was that like early 2000s where it had like the rap soundtrack and stuff?
Yeah, probably. Let me see if I can find
it. Just feels like I don't know, man. In my head, there was like movies between 2000 2005 where Jet Li was in like 17 movies with DMX. I know that's not true, but it kind of felt like that for a while. But
no, this is probably at the end of it. So again, we always do this off on tangents of random films.
Not Jet much Li more random than Unleashed, that's for sure.
So Jet Li played an enforcer for, I think his name was Bart. Bart was Bob Hoskins. And he was like a gangster in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And or a loan shark. And if nobody paid him, he'd take the collar off. So he's raised Jet Li since he was a kid to be violent. And he took the collar off.
I've seen this film. I have seen it. Yeah.
If he took the collar off, Jet Li would basically kick shit out of people. And then just out of the blue.
So when you said a dog, I thought you meant a literal dog.
Well,
he turned from a dog into
So either America knows there's Unleashed, or we know there's Unleashed, but another name was Danny the dog.
Danny the dog.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But randomly as well, just out of the blue, Morgan Freeman will rock up as the kind guy that helps Danny, and Morgan Freeman plays a blind piano tuner in the middle of Scotland. I tell you
what, as well, this film had good reviews. If you go back, I enjoyed it. I hadn't thought about this film from 2005, and if you mentioned now, I would have had no confidence that it had good reviews. I don't remember it being good, bad. I just remember it being a movie. But I'm looking at it, I'm like 66% Rotten Tomatoes, 7 out of 10 on IMDb. For a movie with that synopsis, I'm like, that's fucking high, dude. That is high.
I mean, that was a 7 out of 10. I'm pretty sure Roger Rabbit, it was, it's a 7.7. So you're pretty much on the same.
Oh, yeah. They're pretty much the same. Unleashed and Roger fucking Rabbit. Are we going to end there on Unleashed, or do we have anything else to add about Roger Rabbit?
No, let's end on Unleashed. That sounds like the perfect place to end it on.
Yeah, I was going to mention the weird sex pest, but let's just move on. It's fine. The Jessica Rabbit alternative. That sequence is
the sex pest if you want.
Only because she had an Adam's apple, which suggests it's a dude in drag chasing Bob Hoskins trying to get. Anyway, we'll move on. It's surprised we didn't mention the end as well. The end I actually thought was fantastic. Film. I just briefly, I thought in terms of finding that balance.
It was going to come up in favorite scenes, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, okay, let's just leave it at that then. In terms of beyond it being a joke, the reveal of Jessica Rabbit, like I mentioned earlier, it just wouldn't happen now. But it's a great introduction for that character. The scene in the bar where he wants a drink, other than a few technical hiccups, is another fantastic one.
Yeah.
But really, for me, it is the piano duel between Daffy Duck and Donald Duck. It's that idea. It's for us, that might seem throwaway, but for a generation of kids, that's like seeing the Hulk fight Superman. So, oh my God, they've got Daffy Duck and Donald Duck. And, like we said, there are scenes where, Mickey Mouse is on the screen with Bugs Bunny and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no scene nails it as much. When you have that idea of your head, it's like, oh, what's it going to be like when you have these characters on the screen together? That's the one that truly nails it. And that's the one where I think they put the most love and attention into, is the sequence with Daffy Duck and Donald Duck. So that's my favorite sequence in the movie.
So we do a favorite scene. For some reason, I completely forgot if we do favorite scene or loves and hates first.
Favorite scene first.
Okay. Jesus Christ. I don't know. Just had a blank.
Sorry?
It's the end for me. It's the introduction. It's the introduction of Judge Doom as the villain. I was kind of I would have been all right if you got through this entire film and never found out who killed his brother. But it's a kids' film, kind of like so you need that payoff. But that's fine. But then to just make, and again, the animation of it to give, was it Christopher Lloyd, saw hand and anvil hand, daggers for eyes, springs, like it all looks fantastic and it looks great. And that battle with everything, and then the way he gets killed. Well, actually, the way he gets killed as Judge Doom before he becomes a Toon, where the steamroller rolls over him. That's fine, and that looks great. And then he gets dipped, and all in the while, you've got Bob Hoskins trying to not have Roger Rabbit and Jessica Rabbit power washed with dip. Is quite good. And then everyone just ignores the fact that the machine just rolls into Toontown. Like, is there an end to Toontown? Is that thing going to rip through the wall? Is there another entrance to Toontown? Like, where does it stop?
That was weird, and then the train hits you. Like, oh, I'm just going to assume everything's fine in Toontown. But as you mentioned, for the most part, this is a noir with cartoons in it. But the ending in particular, once you get beyond the kind of slightly convoluted episode one style, I don't know, what would you even call it? Talk of ownership deals, sole shareholders, and plans for freeway expansion. When you get beyond that, it really does become a live action cartoon for a bit in the best possible way. And it really does hark back, like you said, you have the Vaudeville Act from Bob Hoskins' character, Eddie Valiant. And they really go all in then with like the Acme kind of like box of tricks, don't they? And you're just like, oh, the payoff. And I think it pays off all the more because they haven't gone overboard throughout the rest of the film. Of course, there are moments, but for it keeps a lid on things to an extent because it keeps the emphasis on Bob Hoskins and that noir style narrative, and then it allows that for that last 15 minutes to be like, all right, we're just going to blow the fucking doors off this now and go absolutely insane. And it just, it's a fantastic finale. So I think you've actually made the right choice, although I do still love the Daffy versus Donald face-off. In terms of loves and hates, my three loves, number one, still technically fantastic. I was so happy to see that this movie still looks brilliant. And not only that, as I said, the opening cartoon looks so much better than I remembered. I think because when we were younger, you're kind of trained into the whole, oh, it's cool that we're seeing cartoons on screen with humans. That was the impressive thing. But you go back and watch it now, and you're like, my God, the animation from 1988 in that sequence, I was just like, some CG surely had to be used for the way they moved the camera. But I think it's just, they just took a very long time and put a lot of money into it. Number two, Bob Hoskins, we mentioned him. A lot of great actors in this film. Christopher Lloyd is obviously fantastic as Judge Doom, but Bob Hoskins really is the glue that holds it all together, I think. And number three, I love the fact that it's a noir first and animated movie second. And I think that's the reason it stood the test of time. That's why it works so well as a movie, even beyond the whole kind of, as a technical showcase. So those are my three loves.
We're not really going to differ too much, to be fair. We've mentioned it enough times. It's the animation. The animation's great. The 90% seamlessness between animation and live action is fantastic. You can't fault it. The Bob Hoskins, I'm going to put them together because I would have had four otherwise. Bob Hoskins and Christopher Lloyd, I think, are great in this film. They're fantastic. I've said that like 3 times already. And the look of the neo-noir 1920s Hollywood. With just 40s. With just animated characters just chucked in for shits and giggles, I think is great.
I totally agree. Totally agree. In terms of hates, I mean, it's tricky because there aren't many things I genuinely hate about this film. Roger, while used somewhat sparingly, can be a tad grating, but as I said, they don't overuse him, but he is a little bit annoying. Number two, I mentioned it a few times, the plot is oddly obtuse. And number three, Hoskins in Toontown hasn't aged as well as Toons in the real world. So they were all like nitpicks rather than genuine hates. But if I had to pick 3 hates, those are the ones I'm going for.
Number one, his bullets really pissed me off because they just weren't helpful at all.
Oh, yeah, they were kind of... that's a great shout. Like, other than the first one, which was dope, who kind of pulled out the axe, and I was just like, oh, this is going to be a thing. And then it's just like, oh, okay, we're not doing anything with this.
Yeah. Number two, like you said, the look of Toontown. Wasn't the best. And number three,
it's not Toontown. It's Bob Hoskins in Toontown. It just wasn't as it wasn't convincing in the same way. I didn't think.
Number three is random as hell, but I'm going to give it to you. I didn't like the character of Angelo. Right?
Okay.
I didn't like the character of Angelo. I don't like him even more now. I know he's the voice of Daddy Pig from Peppa Pig.
Oh, okay. Well, I've never watched that, so that means nothing to me. But I'm aware of what Peppa Pig is, of course. But
yeah, you've never used. Oh, yeah, like that's
I've not had to deal with that, but I can understand if I'm sure it's a voice you've come across a few times.
more than a few, thankfully.
Yes.
Thankfully, he's
Okay.
moved on. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of I don't know. I just didn't like the character of Angelo. The whole thing of him just and like, oh, Angelo's my buddy. I made him laugh. He won't sell me out, and he didn't, and that's great. But it just I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of him.
He was very broad as far as the human characters go, and there is an element to that, but they really did push that with his character. It seems like that's the one sequence you weren't so fussed on. It all goes back to the bar sequence,
Yeah,
which you're
yeah.
not so crazy about. Any alternative titles to this film?
Yeah, there are a few wherever I put them. Yeah. It's basically it's going to be like pretty much the same kind of thing, the framed or the rabbit cut. So
Mhm.
we'll go through. I say that, and then you get Bulgaria straight away. Bulgaria, who dunked Roger Rabbit?
Oh, I see. I was hoping it'd just be more kind of like span like Who Framed Rogero Rabito or something like that. But
Croatia, who set up Roger the Bunny?
okay, a little
Czech,
cuter.
Czech Republic, Roger Rabbit fake game.
No, don't like it.
Denmark, who laced Roger Rabbit?
No, that doesn't work.
Finland, who put Roger Rabbit in the box?
Nobody.
Germany watched the wrong film. Foul play with Roger Rabbit.
No, I thought it was going to be like Kickboxer 6 or something like that. Oh, that'll make sense to like the three people who've listened to like all 200 episodes of our podcast.
Greece, who trapped Roger Rabbit? Hungary, Roger Rabbit in the marinade?
No, that's going to be a cultural thing we don't get.
Yeah. Lithuania, who put the rabbit Roger in the nest?
That's convoluted. Although I do love it when you have these cultural differences you're not aware of. I think I may have mentioned before, but I went to see a Bollywood movie and there was a joke about somebody eating, and we were the only crackers in the cinema. Everyone else was Indian. And they made this joke about eating like chicken in the house, and it brought the fucking house down. Back then, I just looking at each other like, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Where am I now? Slovakia, who blamed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. One of our favorite countries, Slovenia.
Got it. Nailed it.
Who stumbled Roger Rabbit?
No. Well, they've let themselves down there. They've let themselves down.
Spain, being very formal. Who has framed Roger Rabbit?
Who has framed Roger Rabbit?
The Swedes. Who put Roger Rabbit in jail?
He doesn't go to jail.
Nope. Turkey, innocent defendant Roger Rabbit.
That's very formal.
Yeah. Where are we going here? Vietnam. Who plotted to harm Roger Rabbit?
Again, a little formal, but not the worst one.
No, that's the end. I mean,
all it does is remind me of just how good the title "Who Framed Roger Rabbit" is. It's a great title.
There were so many working titles as well. Dead Tunes Don't Pay Bills. Eddie Goes to Toon. Murder in Toontown. The Toontown Trial. Tunes. Trouble in Toontown. Who censored Roger Rabbit? Who shot Roger Rabbit? Like, fucking hell. They just didn't know what they wanted.
Yeah, I think they've landed on the right one. I genuinely think that's like one of this film's like greatest strength is the fact that it just has a belch of a title. It absolutely does. I'm sure I know for a fact that there are millions of facts. That was a horrible sentence, but yeah. Pick your favorite ones, buddy.
So we've said a few of these anyway. So Bob Hoskins, I like this one. Not really a fact, but it's just something Bob Hoskins said. Bob Hoskins said that for 2 weeks after seeing the movie, his son wouldn't talk to him. When finally asked why, his son said he couldn't believe his father would work with cartoon characters such as Bugs Bunny and not let him meet them.
Oh, that's adorable. That is adorable.
Yep.
That's a good question, actually. When you were younger, were you team Bugs Bunny or team Mickey Mouse?
Didn't have much Disney, like Bugs Bunny and all were always.
I think because of our age,
yeah,
and because of even though we weren't watching like classic era stuff, because of the Animaniacs, Toontown, stuff like that, I think I had more of a connection with Bugs Bunny growing up.
Yeah, Saturday morning cartoons and things like that, and randomly in between late afternoons on ITV when you had 5 or 10 minutes between shows, you'd get a random like Bugs Bunny cartoon
or Warner Brothers stuff and stuff, Looney Tunes stuff. Yeah, like. Obviously, Mickey Mouse has always been super famous, but he was iconography. I can't remember like watching Mickey Mouse cartoons when I was younger. I remember watching, you say the Looney Tunes stuff. But anyway, sorry, that was an aside.
That's right. When Eddie takes Roger Rabbit into the back room at the bar where Dolores works to cut apart the handcuffs, the lamp from the ceiling is bumped and swinging. Lots of extra work was needed to make the shadows match between the actual room shots and the animation. Today, bump the lamp is a term used by many Disney employees to refer to going that extra mile on an effect just to make it a lot more special, even though most audience members will never notice it.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And that is one of the things like you notice with that opening shot, and you actually see it throughout the movie, is it, and obviously it's one of those things, it's a bit of a flex at the time, but they're massive on reflections. Like that's one of the things that will set it aside from like everyday animation. You see reflections everywhere, and you're just like, man, the amount of work that must have gone in. And that's for the stuff which is planned, let alone the fucking lampshade and stuff like that. But yeah. Reflections are like throughout the film, and they're amazingly convincing.
Although the film's title is a question, no question mark appears in the title because this is considered bad luck in the industry.
Oh, I had no idea.
So, yeah. The movie's line, "I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way," was voted as the 83rd of the 100th greatest movie lines by Premiere in 2007.
I actually had that written down and we just kind of skipped over it, but I was just like, what an absolutely, and I didn't know it was like what like listed as one of the greatest lines of all time, but it is and I wasn't going to do that as the opening quote. I'm not going to do fucking Jessica Rabbit, but it is an absolute belter of a line without question.
The truck full of bowling balls, pianos, etc., into which Jessica Rabbit and subsequently Eddie Valiant crash in Two Town is labeled the Acme overused gags.
It's quite funny. As I mentioned, so many fantastic Easter eggs in this film. You could spend an hour just talking about the Easter eggs.
John Cleese expressed interest in playing Judge Doom. Spielberg and Zemeckis refused, thinking nobody would take a former member of Monty Python seriously as a sadistic villain. However, Steven Spielberg was still impressed by his audition and gave Cleese the role of the villainous Cat R. Wall in American Tail 5 Goes West.
Oh, that's another great movie. Not as good as this, but I love that movie growing up.
When Judge Doom's eyes are visible, he never blinked.
Yeah, Christopher. That was a choice by Christopher Lloyd. He's like, that's how I'm going to be creepy. I'm just never going to blink on screen.
326 animators worked full-time on the film. In total, 82,080 frames of animation were drawn, including storyboards and concept art. Animation director Richard Williams estimates that well over 1 million drawings were done for the movie.
And the thing is, the only place this is going to continue to exist realistically, and maybe it'll only be for as long as he continues to be alive, is Studio Ghibli with Miyazaki in charge. He's the one guy who's just like, no, I want to keep the emphasis on hand-drawn animation. Obviously, they use some CG and stuff like that, but the idea that they're going to go back to just having an absolute platoon of animators is just like, I'm not sure this is going to happen. Like one of the other films we covered on this podcast, so released around the similar time actually, was Akira. And if you watch like behind the scenes videos of the animators working on Neo Tokyo, putting on all those individual lights on buildings, just like it's unbelievable craftsmanship, but stuff that's obviously just not going to be done anymore because it's just easier to do it on computer, of course.
Right, 3 more and then I'm done because there's loads. The Ink and Paint Club's policy of only letting toons onto the premises as entertainers as employees, not as customers, is a reference to numerous segregated venues during early to mid 20th century America. For example, Harlem's Cotton Club. The venue was located in an African-American neighborhood. The performers and staff were African-American, and the shows often had pandering jungle themes, but only white people were allowed in as customers. The racial segregation between humans and toons was much more prominent in a novel the film is based on, with Jessica suffering from self-loathing issues and trying to suppress her toon traits in the same way that some people with black ancestry who were light-skinned enough to pass as white sometimes chose to do so. And there being bars that would only serve either humans or toons.
Yeah, there's a different version of this movie for sure. Like, we mentioned the fact that it's maybe for adults slightly more than it is for kids. You could just turn the notch up a few more and you're just like, well, you could deal with the politics of, I was thinking of like District 13 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden having to deal with toons being kind of sentient. It's like, well, what does that mean? I'm glad they don't do it in this movie because I don't think it would work as a kids movie anymore. But yeah, some interesting concepts which are just sitting in the background.
Right. So even though we've barely mentioned them, but I will give them their flowers. So the weasels' names are not mentioned in the film, but they are Smartass, who is the leader with the hat, Psycho in the straight jacket and spiky hair. I bet you couldn't guess who that one was. Stupid in the striped shirt, Greasy, the suave one in green with the Hispanic accent and dark skin, and Wheezy, the blue smoker.
Awesome. The weasels are fantastic. They are fantastic.
And finally, in the original VHS and Laserdisc release, when Eddie and Jessica are thrown out of the car, you can see for a few short frames that Jessica was not wearing any underwear. There was nothing to see but flesh-tone paint, but there was a fair amount of talk about it. In later versions, this was switched to white paint, thereby restoring her underwear. After this, it was changed again with a series of frames replaced with new ones to completely eliminate this. The original VHS and Laserdisc laser disc also featured a very brief single frame of Betty Boop's dress slipping down and exposing her breasts, which Robert Zemeckis had insisted on including as tribute to the classic Betty Boop cartoons, where the animators would slip in the occasional single lewd frame, and this too was cut out in future releases. One frame of Jessica's breast being exposed during a booby trap gag was animated but never made it into any version of the film.
Boo, bring back the boobs.
Yeah. Because you're watching a random kids film, and it's like fucking Fight Club. And all of a sudden, there's just a frame of Betty Boop just like going topless.
But that's the thing.
See that?
Back then, you could get away with that, especially before like VHS and stuff like that in particular, because the movie would be on in the cinema and it would just be hearsay. You wouldn't be able to film it on your phone. You'd just be like, dude, I think that happened. And you'd have no way. So it'd almost become like, what's the term I'm looking for? Suburban. Yeah, but there's
urban myth.
Urban myth, thank you. Suburban myth, as that doesn't sound right. An urban myth where you're just like, oh, dude, I think that happened. And you're like, well, you're going to go to the cinema and watch it again to see if there maybe was a frame. And even if there was, you wouldn't be for sure. Obviously, you can't do it now with phones and the technology and everything. There's a nipple in that film. Everyone's going to know about that goddamn nipple. So, yeah, it was a more innocent time in a weird way, despite the inclusion of boobs on screen.
The one that makes me think about is sports, especially wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Like wrestling, the WWE's now come onto Netflix, so I watch it a bit more. But it's so because I watch it a bit more now, my phone has decided this is what you want to see on your social media, and all I keep getting on my social media now is this character, this wrestler had a nip slip, and then it's like Jesus Christ, and you've got these people pausing it and moving in and zooming. You're like, all right, mate, it was a nip slip.
Yeah, but you also have to remember that for us and people from our generation, there was a period when these moments were of great importance to us because there was no pornography.
Wasn't there a whole website?
We didn't have the internet. It was like, unless you were lucky enough to find one in the fucking woods, nobody had pornographic magazines. The danger of keeping them at home, it just wasn't worth it. So this idea that you could even get like a brief look at a nipple, it seems so quaint now, but it was a massive deal if you were like 13 years old in like 1995. It just was.
Wasn't there a website that told you what actor gets naked in what film and stuff?
Yeah, which again is quite quaint in itself because now it would just show you the clips. But back then it's just like, if you've got the VHS, you can stop the video at 1 hour, 10 minutes in and you'll see a hint of somebody's nipple. It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Hug to the Future. So this is where we ask a question, remake, sequels, Let It Die or Leave One Alone. I mentioned earlier that there was plans for a sequel, but I think that ship has sailed, especially since Bob Hoskins' passing. So I'm of the mindset to absolutely leave this well alone.
Yeah, leave it alone. It's perfect for the time. I don't need any more than that. So
no, there could have been a sequel. I wouldn't have been against a sequel like in the early 90s or something like that. You could have done something maybe interesting with CG, but it's there now. So leave well alone. Make a change. So if you only make one change to make this movie better, for me, as I said, it's probably streamline the plots ever so slightly. Like in terms of Judge Doom's intentions, it all gets a little bit silly at one point, and by the end I'm just like, I don't really care because the action on screen is so great, but I'm just like, this all feels like a lot to make a freeway, but it is what it is. But like I said, it's a minor gripe, but that's what I'd change.
As you've alluded to, I seem to have a massive problem, not a massive problem, but I have a problem with the showdown in the bar, so maybe that can be cut out a little bit.
Fair play, or just tidy it up, I suppose. In terms of video games, there was a side scroller for the NES made by Rare, and there was a Game Boy adaptation, which was actually top down, but that was made by Capcom. So some big names were included in the making of Who Framed Roger Rabbit video games in the late 80s, actually, and early 90s. The Game Boy adaptation in particular, not only was it developed by Capcom, it was developed specifically by Shinji Mikami of Resident Evil fame. So, some kind of video game royalty were included in the making of the Game Boy adaptation in particular. But I think both games were perfectly decent for their time. They're not all that, but you think of like the Disney movies in particular, or Disney's TV shows, which left an impact on the NES. Like, there was DuckTales was an absolute classic, also made by Capcom. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, that was another fantastic one. There were a few genuinely good Disney adaptations for the NES and the Game Boy. This wasn't quite in that league, but perfectly fine. If I was going to make one today, I think there's only one answer. I would go for Cuphead spin-off by developer MDHR. I mean, that is fundamentally based on the golden age of American animation already. Just do that style only if you could get the rights to Disney and WB characters. Whether I would keep it as a shooter, I'm not sure. To be honest, I just want the aesthetic because that game, if you haven't seen or played Cuphead before, it's really hard, but it looks absolutely phenomenal. And it would be a perfect fit for Roger Rabbit in particular. But that's what I'll go for. But I don't think it's essential. I'm not screaming out for a fucking Roger Rabbit video game.
In all fairness, mate, I couldn't think of anything that would fit for this. So I was just
Stick
trying
with
to think
Cuphead.
Yeah, because the only other thing I was thinking of was, do you remember that Mickey Mouse game with the castle?
Oh yeah, Castle of Illusion.
Castle of Illusions. Like you could have something like that with Roger Rabbit going through photorealistic things. But no, I like your idea, Cuphead.
We'll go with Cuphead. We'll go with that. Yeah. Okay, so best and worst of IMDb. So this is where we pick a random 10 and 1-star review for this movie. I'm a little bit thrown with the numbers because we did The Mist last week, and did that have like 1,000 reviews? Or more than that, like 1,500?
Yeah.
This surely has loads more. Is it in the tens of thousands?
It's in the hundreds, the low hundreds.
Of thousands?
Yeah. No, it's not thousands, it's low hundreds.
Of reviews, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. 242.
374.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
How many tens?
I'm going to say like maybe 30% of those. So I'm going to say just under 78.
136.
Oh, fuck. Close enough. Close enough for government work. Let's just go with it.
Released on the... well, actually, this was written on the best day ever, 2nd of March, 2009. Just in case that... yeah, 2nd of March. I'll do. Titled Wow, and I Mean Wow. One word, outstanding. I loved this when I was a kid. I'm 16 now and I still love it. The live action with the animation was perfectly blended and I was howling with laughter at the beginning. The story is perfect, about a rabbit framed for a murder when he suspects his wife of cheating on him. Bob Hoskins was brilliant as the melancholy drunk private eye, while Christopher Lloyd has great fun as the very scary villain. I would never have guessed the ending in a million years. Totally unpredictable and quite scary too. The real stars were the Toons. Some of the funniest scenes were with them, like Eddie in Toontown, and the Weasels were a blast. Reminded me of the Untouchables. Actually, I didn't know for ages that Kathleen Turner voiced Jessica Rabbit. Wow, that woman is beautiful. Turner voiced Jessica brilliantly. In conclusion, a hugely satisfying part animated comedy that both kids and adults will love. 10 out of 10.
Hard to disagree with too much of that. Yeah. I'm not sure if I give it 10 out of 10, but yeah, I'm totally on board. To be honest, I'm much more interested in the 1-star lunatics for this one. Like, who gives Roger Rabbit a fucking 1-star? But there must be some. So if there was 370, I don't know, 21 1-star reviews?
4.
That's more like, I was a little concerned. I was like, just based on the pure numbers, but 4 1-star reviews. I think that's the lowest we've ever had, in fairness.
Yeah. No, there was a random film I pulled out where basically we had like 1 10-star and 1 1-star, I think.
Oh, fair enough.
So written in July 2005, titled A Stupid Movie with Not Enough Cameos of Cartoon Characters.
Oh my God, 1 star.
The only great scene from this movie was the scene when Daffy and Donald were playing the piano and things got out of hand. I enjoyed that scene when the movie first came out, and the scene is still great today. This must be the first and last movie ever that had Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny together, unless Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue had them together. Why was Yosemite Sam on fire? Why didn't Woody Woodpecker have any speaking lines? This was the stupidest movie I've ever seen. It was stupid in 1988, and it is still stupid today. This movie was inappropriate for children. The baby cussing and smoking. The movie was pointless, and Roger Rabbit is retarded. Why did they make Jessica Rabbit look like someone who should be in an NC-17 movie? The animated shorts were also very stupid. Sorry, very, very stupid. Roger Rabbit is a fool. Whatever happened to Roger Rabbit? I didn't even see him at Disney World.
That's a bizarre review, that is. I mean, they're the ones I live for. You know, these like
Yeah.
lunatic 1-star reviews. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Because, of course it is, because it's a 1-star review for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You have to be a miserable son of a bitch. But I'm just like, well, what's his justification for this 1-star review? I'm still not quite sure what it is. Because he was like, oh, it's not enough characters. And then he just listed loads of characters. It's absolutely mental review. And yeah, I disagree with basically all of it, except for, he did mention the fact that the Daffy and Donald face-off is awesome. So, but
Do you want to?
1-star
Do you want to
review
agree with a lunatic like that, though?
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So that leads us to our own ratings and recommendations. For me, this is similar to like previous week. It's a 4, but it's a really strong 4. It's a very I don't think it's quite a 5-star movie for me, but it's 4, and it's like one of those really strong recommends. It's I would say, like, after rewatching it, I am going to tap it. So I'll do this on Disney Plus. It still fucking looks awesome. It's still really fun. If you haven't seen it for ages, you should watch it again. If you've never seen it before, you should definitely watch it. So it's a strong 4 for me and a strong recommend.
Yeah, it's a 4 for me as well. I wanted to say 3.5 or something, but no, it's definitely a 4. And going by what we said before about if somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh, look, I got Roger Rabbit. Should I watch it?" Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead and watch that film. You'll thoroughly enjoy it.
Unless you're that one lunatic who gave a 1-star review. Like, I'm not even saying like it's going to be your favorite movie of all time, but just there's every chance that you're going to enjoy it. It's like it's an hour and 45 minutes long. You can watch it, despite what he said. You can watch it with your kids, especially in 2025. Yeah. And yeah. I mean, the only issue is your kids might get bored of it because it is aimed more. If anything, you'll probably enjoy it more than your kids, to be honest. But yeah, so that's been 1988. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Next week is your choice, sir. What are you going for? Actually, no. I'm gonna peek behind the curtain because we needed to rush this. I already know what he's gonna pick, and I want to be perfectly honest. I could have spent 100 years trying to guess this movie, and I would have never guessed it. So I'm willing to admit. You could say however many things I wouldn't have known. So
right. We will tell. We played a game. We need to tell people, right? We do play the game, and it is 100% legit. We don't tell each other.
Yeah, that's why I'm being honest now.
Yeah, we don't tell each other what our next choice is going to be, except because of time frames and people going away and stuff like this. We've had to record pretty close together.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, in order for us to watch these films back to back, I did tell you what it was, and yes, I don't think you would. I would have told you it was released in 91, and the director was Daniel Petrie Jr., and I don't think you would have got it. I would have given you a star. Will Wheaton, Andrew Divoff, Keith Coogan, R. Lee Ermey, and you're going, what the fuck? Louis Gossett Jr., Sean Astin. Yeah.
I wouldn't have got it.
And then
I haven't seen this film.
Oh, dude, you're missing out. I just have to tell you, it's Toy Soldiers. It's Die Hard in a school.
I'm not going to lie as well. When you said we're going to do Toy Soldiers,
did you think Small Soldiers?
I immediately thought Small Soldiers. And just be clear, Small Soldiers should be called Toy Soldiers. It makes loads more sense. So I was thinking of the animated. It's not animated. It's the one with the CG toys and they come to life, and it's Tommy Lee Jones and all that jazz. That was the one I was thinking of, and it's because I know nothing about Toy Soldiers. Nothing. I'm not even sure I knew it existed until you mentioned it. So this is all completely new to me. I am genuinely looking forward to it because I read the synopsis. I was like, well, this sounds more mental than I was expecting. So I think this could be an interesting one. As to whether it's going to be good, no fucking clue. No clue.
Okay, so I loved this film as a kid. Mm-hmm. It was it hit me at the right time. Because as you said before, Psychos, we've watched Die Hard, we've watched all these films. Mm-hmm. So the fact there was kids who were meant to be my age or just a little bit older than me, and then they taking on terrorists in their school. Yeah, it was like, yeah, mate. Honestly, we could do all that.
It sounds like a bit of Red Dawn, but without the politics, maybe.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
It's basically kids forced into an extreme situation and having to fight against grown-ups. I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes, 41%, but it does have a 6.6 on IMDb, which suggests that people like this film. That's for sure. Yeah. It's got a decent cast. So
Andrew Divoff as well, doing his absolute best, and also randomly from Total Recall, Michael Madsen's partner in crime is again the partner in crime for Andrew Divoff in this. Michael Champion as I can't remember who he was in this, but Jack, I think his name was in this. But do you remember him?
In Total Recall. Yeah, with the glasses.
Yeah.
Glasses. Yeah, I just remember his glasses dude and like kind of blondie, spiky hair, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
But oh god, Total Recall, what a film! But I mean, is there anywhere people can watch this film, or is this one of those ones you kind of just have to have a copy?
No. It is currently in the UK on Amazon Prime. So if it's in the UK on Amazon Prime, it's going. I would assume it is for our other listeners as well, wherever in the world you are.
Fantastic. So yeah, if you fancy giving it a go, I mean, you can join. If you haven't seen it before, you can join me watching it for the first time. But yeah, this will be an interesting one.
I do like these ones where I pull these ones out of the bag and you say I've never seen it before or heard of it. And
well, it's an interesting conversation because, you know, it's the whole thing about like you'll have the nostalgia attached to it. And you know, we always say it's like a band snack because we want to rate it based on, you know, is it still good today? But you can never completely remove your nostalgia. So, you know, and sometimes you can even go the other way where you remember it being good. And then you see it and it's such a disappointment. It makes it even worse where you think, oh, maybe if you're watching it for the first time and you didn't have those expectations and you didn't have that kind of nostalgia for it, you might be more forgiving for it. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation from someone who's obviously, I assume you've seen it many, many times versus me.
Many times as a kid.
Jack shit about it.
Many times as a kid, haven't seen it for a number of years. I will say, I probably think I'm on about an 80% success rate with giving you a film like this.
Yeah, the only one you've ever picked where I think I've been pretty positive on nearly all of them. The only two that really stand out. I wasn't first on Deepwater. Is that it? I keep getting the title wrong.
Yeah,
Deep Rising.
Not Deep Rising.
Wasn't crazy about Deep Rising. And you picked that Christmas movie, Santa's Sleigh, with Bill Goldberg. That was the only. Yeah, I think that's the only film I've given one star to.
I thought you were
200 episodes.
I thought you were going to pull out. Fuck me, Nightbreed.
No, because Nightbreed, I think I gave that 2 stars, and that has loads of problems. I didn't hate watching it. It's not a great movie, but it wasn't without merit. But I would say, other than those 3, most of the ones you've picked, which I hadn't seen before, I've enjoyed, and a handful of them I've really, really enjoyed. I'll be interested to see where this goes. I suspect it might be somewhere in the middle, but we'll find out next week. Anything else before we wrap this up?
Well, after this, we might have to do the Swordman 2 Gladiator Cop starring Lorenzo Lamas. We won't even do Swordman. Title. We won't even do Swordsman 1. We're going to go straight to Swordsman 2.
That just sounded like you just said random words to me, but who knows? Before we wrap this up, just remember, like, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on all that jazz. Download, subscribe to the podcast. We're also on YouTube if you want to give it a listen there. We always forget to mention these things. But I've been Liam, he's been Rob, and you have been listening to the Hey You Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you